College Lax, week 4. Let's talk about it. Last week was a great week in college lacrosse. Sorry I skipped it. Wasn't feeling really well last week, so I decided not to record the podcast. But we're back now. Talk about what's going on, what happened last week, everything. Because last weekend had a lot of great games. One, I'd say game of the weekend was probably Maryland. I guess you could say upsetting because Syracuse was ranked ahead. Syracuse was up at halftime, and Maryland's able to storm in that weather. The weather is what Maryland was talking about after the game. I forget who it was. A Maryland player was like, "Oh, it's not 70 and sunny in College Park. You're not playing in the dome. It's not the controlled environment." That first test that Syracuse really had against a top 10 ranked team, they folded and they played in bad weather and they played a good team and they folded. So leaves a lot of questions there with Syracuse about people saying, are they back or are they not? Everyone is always like, oh, Syracuse says they're back and then they're not. But it leaves a lot of questions for them, a lot of questions that need to be answered tomorrow against Harvard. Harvard comes in the JMA Wireless Dome. Again, like I mentioned, in the dome, it's different. The Orange play well at home. They play well in the controlled environment. No effects of the weather and the elements around them. It's another chance against a ranked opponent after falling last week. This is a big one for Syracuse that they really need to get in order to, stay on that trajectory of because they were the number 2 team. They've dropped down to number 6. It's a huge, very important for Syracuse to win this game convincingly, and show that they can handle their business against a ranked opponent and, maintain a lead. Because I think they were up 6-5 against Maryland, and then 11-7. Like you can't let Maryland go on that run that they did last weekend. And hey, Maryland, no preseason All Americans at all. The only person on the Tewaaraton, or maybe Logan McNaney was a honorable mention, or maybe he's on the Tewaaraton watch list. But Logan McNaney really the only one that got some preseason respect on that UMD squad. UMD showing that they should be getting a little bit more respect than people believe. Going in or bringing Syracuse down and beating them. That was huge for them. We had Princeton over Penn State. Talk about that Princeton attack line, man. That Princeton attack line. Nate Kabiri, Collin Burns, that duo they played together at Georgetown Prep. Princeton's nice with it. They're what are they up to in the rankings now? They're still at number 5. Maryland did jump them beating Syracuse, but a couple other good games. The Ivies have finally, got playing. It's always fun when the Ivy League finally joins everybody else in college lacrosse and gets it kicked off. And we saw Cornell took care of business against Lehigh. Did allow Lehigh to put up 10 though, which I am a little surprised by. Like Cornell only beating them 18-10. But we saw Penn drop to Georgetown. I think both those teams are good. That's an 8-6. It's a close game. I think Penn will be all right. I definitely think that's a great goalie matchup that was in that game. Emmett Carroll and Anderson Moore. Nice low scoring game there that the Hoyas were able to overcome and continue. Harvard had their first win against Princeton. And then who else in the Ivies played kicking off the season? Brown lost to Fairfield. And then Villanova upsetting Yale. That was surprising. Villanova, we always think of as a solid team, a team that could contend in the big, or we want to say he's going to contend in the Big East, and they kind of could just never break through that upper echelon into the Big East that we wanted to see. It's always Georgetown, it's always Denver, Providence sneaks in there, and then Villanova's right there, but they've never really been able to beat those top tier teams. But if coming out and put up 13 goals to beat number 9 Yale, that's impressive, and that shows something about this Villanova team. And I think they could look good this year in the Big East. It's a good Big East conference. Like I mentioned, Denver's ranked, Georgetown's ranked, Providence is ranked, even though Providence lost to Harvard last week. But if Villanova is able to beat solid teams, then they can contend with the best of them. And I would love to see that just for the Big East to be a strong conference. I would love to see that, see Villanova really competing there. Notre Dame took care of business against Marquette. They're number 1. They're going to stay number 1, especially with Syracuse dropping to Syracuse was kind of that only school that people were saying, kind of was maybe pushing Notre Dame. Was like people were saying, oh, should Syracuse be number 1? Obviously, I'm a Syracuse student, a little biased, but people were like Syracuse pushing. Should they be number one? It's clear Notre Dame, they're going to be number one till they aren't, till they lose, till someone just proves that they shouldn't be number one. They're going to continue to be that way. They're still easily a national, easily a championship contender. And then you got Hopkins, nine, Loyola, eight. Little Battle of Baltimore there. Hopkins, two close one goal games in their Baltimore battles to begin this season, but took care of business in both of them. At the end of the day, they were able to take care of business. But I mean, man, this 0-3 Loyola team, I think somebody on Hopkins said it, this 0-3 Loyola team should be ranked, even though they're 0-3. Because one goal game against Maryland, one goal game against Hopkins, and then they had the loss at Georgetown too. But that's three really, really good teams that this Loyola team, lost to. And so, you start your season with the non-Patriot League schedule as Loyola, and man, it was a hard schedule to begin with this year. But look for them if they're playing that well against Maryland and Hopkins. Look for Loyola to make some noise this year in the Patriot League. They look like a nice team. Duke 11, St. Joe's 9. St. Joe's put up a fight there. St. Joe's I believe they're operating with I believe they lost their starting goalie. So they're playing with their backup goalie right now. And 11-9 against Duke. Watch out, St. Joe's can make a little noise in the A10 potentially. That's really it on like last week's games. Denver, nice win over Utah 10-8. But yeah, good weekend of college lacrosse last weekend. Like I said, Ivies are back. It's fun. Kind of rolling. Oh, Rutgers versus Army. Man, Army's goalie has been fantastic. He has been absolutely insane, just standing on his head. Sean Brine, the junior, has just been standing on his head this year. He's fantastic. I think it was like the Lacrosse Network put out that we used the national defense budget to build him in a lab for the Army lacrosse team. So Army's nice. Oh, and then the real upset of the weekend. I'm just saving this for last. I didn't forget about it. Richmond upsetting Virginia. Are you kidding? Virginia, you're losing number seven Virginia. This is the year. It's on ACC Network. You're losing to your in-state little brother, Richmond. Not even in overtime. It's 13-10. Beat 'em by 3 goals. This Virginia team has so many questions for me. Yeah, they beat Colgate. They've also since beat High Point since that loss to Richmond. But I just don't know how I feel about McCabe Millen having the keys to that offense. I think I mentioned it in the preseason. I think that when you lose a guy like Schellenberger and you lose a guy like Cormier, it's such a huge difference, who that number one defender, was going after Cormier or no, going after Schellenberger and Cormier for so long that McCabe was able to slip through and be nice and play nice, but now is that number one threat. Virginia, they got Ohio State and then they got Hopkins March 1st. I think that'll be a huge test for this UVA team at Hopkins. That's when we're really going to be able to kind of see something. Um, but yeah, like McCabe Millen was supposed to have the keys to this attack unit, and he's third in points. He only has 4 goals. He has 9 assists. It's true. It's Sunderland's been their best attackman so far this year, and Ryan Cosley also has a 15 points, 10 goals on the year, both of them. But we thought that McCabe had the keys to this, and he's got 4 goals, 9 assists, and they lost to Richmond. There's a lot of questions there with UVA that are yet to have been answered. And I think kind of similar, like I said about Syracuse, is we need to just see how they play against those top-ranked opponents. But Syracuse's loss was to a good Maryland team, and Virginia's loss was to Richmond, which you just can't let that happen. But let's look at this weekend's games. We got a full slate packed. Iona versus VMI. Iona finally has a win on the schedule. They beat Hampton, but lost to LIU last week. I'm giving it to VMI. Denver versus Cornell. This might be game of the week. Let me just look through the schedule. This is game of the week, I think. Yeah. Cornell versus Denver. I've said it. Cornell's my national championship pick. I think CJ Kurz is still my tour-time pick. Give me Cornell, but look for Denver to upset 4 versus the 12. I think this will be a really fun matchup. It's home for Cornell, first home game. I think the Big Red take care of business. I think they're motivated. I think they're ready. I don't you know, Denver having to come all the way over to central New York. I don't think. I think that travel will definitely affect them. And nasty weather in central New York right now. It's cold, it's snowy, it's windy. Ithaca's about 40 minutes from me. I assume that the weather's probably very similar. So give me Cornell, BU versus Air Force. Give me BU, Army Mercer, Army's been playing great. Like I mentioned, Sean Brown in goal, Bellarmine, Detroit Mercy, toss up. Give me Bellarmine. Binghamton versus Marist, another toss up. I don't really know. Give me Bing. Why not? Or no, yeah, give me Bing. Give me Bing. I'll take Bing. Brown versus Providence. Providence has dropped out of the rankings. I think they get that. I think that they kind of lock in this week and they're able to, get back on their show why they were a ranked team to begin with. So give me Providence. Give me the Friars. Quinnipiac versus Bryant. Another, I don't really know anything about either team. And give me Q. Give me Quinnipiac. Hobart, Bucknell. So Bucknell, what was it? Last weekend lost to Dartmouth, which was a little bit surprising, but they looked nice. They put up, 20 plus goals against Merrimack and St. Bonaventure to start off. I think they kind of bounced back after that loss to Dartmouth. Give me Bucknell. Penn versus Delaware. Penn's dropped all the way to 17th. Delaware's ranked 18th. Delaware team's fun. Penn's bouncing back. Penn's going to show everyone why they're a good team. I think that this is definitely going to go Penn's way, or not definitely, but Penn's my prediction here. Duke versus Michigan. Michigan has dropped out of the rankings since that bad loss to North Carolina a couple weeks ago. Again, I think this Michigan team's slightly overrated. Duke, close game against St. Joe's. I think they come out, they make a statement, they show that that game should not have been that close. Give me Duke. Another game, maybe this is game of the week. Notre Dame, Georgetown in DC. This one's going to be fun. I mean, these are two great teams. Like, these are two of the best. Well, I mean, I've been talking about Georgetown. I had the loss to Hopkins, but they beat Penn last week. They beat Loyola, who we said is a good team so far. But like I said, Notre Dame, okay, they got 2 wins now. Notre Dame is the best team in college lacrosse until they tell us otherwise. So keep giving me Notre Dame. I'm not going to pick against them until I have to. Jacksonville versus Hampton. Give me Jacksonville. I don't know if Hampton's going to get a D1 win this year. It so far doesn't appear that way because Iona, I think, was that opportunity a brand new Division 1 program, and they couldn't get it done against Iona. I don't know what Hampton's deal is this year. I don't know what Hampton's deal is ever. I don't know what they have to change about recruiting there, but currently they're just not competing at that D1 level like they need to be. Hopkins, North Carolina. No, great games this week. I don't know who to, put as my marquee game of the week, but Hopkins, North Carolina, two teams I'm high on both teams. I'm very high on both teams. This one is in Baltimore. Hopkins has been nice so far. Russell Melendez is kind of, playing how we thought he was going to play when he first got to Hopkins after a little bit of a down year. You could say maybe a down year last year. But man, North Carolina is a good squad. Petramala, Duffy, Ty English, James Matten. That's just a fun offense. All those guys have at least, Matten's the lowest there with 4 points, but it's a fun offense there. I like UNC a lot. I really do. But I'm gonna give this one slight edge to Hopkins just because it's in Baltimore. If this was in Chapel Hill, I'd probably pick UNC, but I'm gonna give it to Hopkins. I think they'll get a nice crowd out there. This is probably so far this year. I mean, you could probably say the Georgetown game, but I think this will be a bigger crowd than the Georgetown game down there at Homewood in Baltimore. Lehigh versus Richmond. Richmond's climbed into the rankings now after that big win against UVA. I think that they're riding a little too high. Give me Lehigh. I've liked Lehigh this year. See. I want to say I like Lehigh, but they've struggled. They're 0-3. I think they got to get something. They got to get something going. I think it's going to be here. I think they bounce back. I think Richmond's riding a little too high. Give me Richmond. Rutgers, Loyola. Mentioned. I like both these teams. I was high on Rutgers going into the season, coming off 2 losses to Stony Brook and Army, though. little disappointing to see from the Scarlet Knights. So I end this Loyola team. They're fun. They're 0-3, but it's time for them to get their win. Give me Loyola. Princeton, Maryland. Wow. So many good matchups this weekend. Number two versus number five. I feel like I kind of have to say that's game of the week. This is at Princeton. But man, give me Maryland. Maryland's looking good. They beat Syracuse. They showed they have a lot of grit. They might not have that top end talent, that go to guy that we usually think of when we think of the Terps in college lacrosse, but man, they look good. As good as that Princeton offense is, give me Logan McNaney and net. The Terps get it done. UMass NJIT. I don't know anything about it. Give me NJIT, America's team from last year. I don't. UVA versus Ohio State. UVA's mad. They're taking it out on the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes aren't as strong as people thought they might be. UVA's mad. The giant is being woken up. Give me UVA. Give me UVA by a lot. Shoe versus Stony Brook. Stony Brook had a nice win against Rutgers, obviously to open the season. Played all right against UNC. Give me Stony Brook. I don't really know much about Sacred Heart this year. Towson versus St. Joe's. Two unranked teams. Both are good. Both are fun. Like I mentioned, St. Joe's put up a nice fight against Duke. But Towson's 0-3. They were ranked, but 0-3 going into Philly. One of these teams is going to be very disappointed. This is at Towson. I'd say, man, this one's tough. This one's very, very tough. I give me Towson. They're a good squad, and they're still looking for that coveted first win. Wagner, UMass Lowell. I have no idea. Wagner, sure. Canisius, Robert Morris. Give me Robert Morris. Marquette, Cleveland State. Give me Marquette. I liked Marquette. Thought Marquette could finally do something. They can't do it against the top end opponents. We've seen that this year, but they'll get it done against Cleveland State. Villanova versus Colgate. Villanova's ranked now, but I mean Colgate could be a solid upset spot. They did beat Harvard. They beat Albany. This would definitely propel them into the rankings. Kind of before they're going to start Patriot League play the next week with Loyola. So this would be a good win for Colgate here to upset Villanova. But yeah, give me Colgate. Give me Colgate to upset Villanova. Holy Cross, Dartmouth. Dartmouth's coming off a nice win. Give me them again. Keep riding with them. Building a new culture up north. Albany, Drexel. Give me Albany. Syracuse, Harvard. Like I mentioned, I said earlier, I said my piece about Syracuse earlier. They're bouncing back. They're ready. They're going to show they can beat a ranked team. They're not just the mid-major bullies like a lot of people say that they are. Give me the orange. St. John's versus Hofstra. Give me Hofstra. LIU Siena. Give me the Sharks of LIU. Penn State versus Navy. Penn State 10, Navy 20. Penn State coming off that disappointing overtime loss to Princeton, but I like Navy this year. They beat up on Iona. They beat High Point. They beat Towson. I like this Navy team. I think they're solid. Give me Navy to upset Penn State. Keeps it rolling. Mercyhurst versus Queens. If this was a conversation 2 years ago, this was a Division II game. So this a division? A lot of the guys playing in this game were recruited to play Division II lacrosse at their respective schools, and they've just moved up since get in there. Mercyhurst, I don't know if they regret moving up or not because they're losing to Bellarmine and UMass Lowell. If they're gonna get a win, if they're gonna get a Division I win, it's probably a team like Queens in a similar situation to them. Give me Mercyhurst to get their first Division I lacrosse win this Saturday against Queens, 2 p.m. Lock it. I don't know. It's a Division II game still in my mind. Fairfield versus Manhattan. Fairfield's been nice this year, 3-0. Good win against Sacred Heart. Good wins against Lehigh and Brown. Stags keep riding. And then Lemoyne versus Lafayette. The weather's so bad here in Syracuse, New York. This game was moved from Lemoyne's home field about 20 minutes from the JMA Wireless Dome to the JMA Wireless Dome. It's going to be indoors. The elements aren't going to be affected. So give me the Pards, who had two nice wins to start off the year, but have since lost to Drexel. Give me the Pards in this nice controlled environment of the JMA Wireless Dome. I, unfortunately, won't be able to be there. to watch either the Syracuse Harvard game or Lafayette versus Lemoyne because Syracuse Club Lacrosse, shout out to the MCLA, is headed down to Philly to take on Drexel. So there's your little MCLA tidbit of the week. But yeah, looking forward. It should be a good weekend. Get ready to break out the ESPN Plus logins and watch some. Definitely gonna be watching some of these games on the bus. But that goes it for this week's episode of the Crease Violation. Just talking ball. It's good to be back. Hopefully, I might start having some guests on here soon. But if you listen this far, thanks for listening. Follow along on socials, Instagram and whatnot. Hopefully, I can get some more content than me just sitting in this cubicle and talking lacrosse. Hopefully, I get some other stuff going here soon. But thanks for the listen, and we'll see you next week.